Did you know that it used to be quite common for people to die from the effects of sucking the monkey? Indeed, the newspaper reports of the latter half of the 19th century contain numerous reports of such fatalities, and by all accounts, it wasn't a particularly pleasant way to go. The term sucking the monkey actually referred to a means by which liquor could be surreptitiously extracted from casks, and it originated in the Royal Navy, where the practice was also known as tapping the admiral. According to tradition, the first admiral to be tapped by his subordinates was Horatio Lord Nelson, the naval hero who was killed by a French sniper at the Battle of Trafalgar, at which the British fleet was ultimately victorious over that of the French. Nelson's body, the story goes, was placed in a cask of brandy or rum to preserve it on the long voyage back to England. However, his ship HMS Victory put in at Gibraltar in order that the damage sustained during the battle could be repaired, and here a disturbing discovery was made. Orders were given to replace the original pickling agent with wine spirit, which was believed to be a superior preservative. On opening the cask, it was discovered that the brandy or rum had been drained by the sailors, who had drilled a hole in its bottom and had gulped down the entire contents. The story is probably apocryphal, but it was a good yarn nonetheless, and it was certainly widely believed, with the result that Nelson's blood had soon become the slang term for brandy and rum, whereas to tap the admiral became a colloquialism with sailors that meant furtively sucking liquor from a cask through a straw. Although whether this actually does refer to the Nelson full-bodied beverage is debatable, as evidence suggests that the expression predates the death of Nelson by many decades. By the time of Nelson's demise, the practice was also commonly referred to as sucking the monkey, and there are several contemporary newspaper accounts of Jolly Jack tars indulging in it. On Monday the 25th of February 1805, for example, the Public Ledger and Commercial and General Advertiser reported on a case in the Court of Common Pleas whereby a Mr. Denny had sued a Captain Dowson to recover the value of 80 gallons of Hollands, which, so the article informed its readers, the defendant, a ship owner, had negligently suffered to leak out of the cask while conveying it from London in his vessel to the place of destination. The liquor was sent in casks, supposed to be sound, from Mr. Gray's distillery in Leadenhall Street to the defendant's ship, and in the voyage to Woodbridge the whole leaked out, except 1 pint, which was attributed either to the captain's inattention in not seeing the cask properly stowed, or what is termed sucking the monkey, a peculiar mode practised by seamen of drinking liquor out of casks in a ship's hold. Quite how the expression came about is uncertain. One explanation attributes its origins to sailors who, having put ashore in the East and West Indies, enjoyed drinking rum through a straw from coconut shells. Since the 3 dots on the shell were thought to resemble a monkey's face, drinking from it became known as sucking the monkey. Whatever its origins, the term certainly enjoyed wide circulation amongst sailors, and by the mid-19th century, both the expression and the practice had been enthusiastically embraced by the workers in the London docks. The Weekly Chronicle, on Saturday the 23rd of February 1850, reported on a case that featured the practice. Sucking the monkey. James Thomas, a labourer in the London docks, was charged at the Thames Court with an offence known as sucking the monkey. A constable saw the prisoner embracing a rum cask in the docks with his mouth lovingly pressed against the bung. He seized him and, pulling back his head, found a little tube in his mouth. He was drunk, and it was evident that he had sucked up spirits from the cask. The prisoner said he had been 10 years a labourer in the docks, and this was his first offence. The magistrate considered it necessary to make an example for the protection of property necessarily so much exposed as that in the docks. He fined the prisoner £5 and, in default of payment, sent him to prison for a month. On Saturday the 18th of October 1851, the following story appeared in the Weekly News and Chronicle. Sucking the monkey. At the Thames Court, a police constable named Doyle and a private watchman named Price have been sentenced to 2 months' imprisonment for unlawfully obtaining wine from a cask in the London docks. The prisoners were suspected, and on the Monday evening, 2 police inspectors hid themselves on the quay in the tobacco dock. About 9:15, the prisoners came to the place. Price went towards a pipe of Spanish wine on the quay and took from his pocket what appeared to be a knife, with which he worked and cut the bung from the cask. Doyle then handed him something which he believed to be a tube, and Price inserted it into the bunghole of the cask, stooped down with his mouth over the hole, and appeared to be drinking. After Price had sucked the monkey, the technical term given to this sort of plunder in the docks, he handed something to Doyle, who also applied his mouth to the bunghole and sucked the wine out. The inspectors did not leave their hiding place until 2 o'clock in the morning, as they expected someone else to follow the prisoners in their work of plunder. At 2 o'clock, they discovered Price on the quay fast asleep. He was intoxicated and smelt very strongly of the wine he had been drinking. In 1853, Robert Richard Vaughan was less fortunate when he decided to imbibe in the docks. The Globe reported on what happened to him in its edition of Friday the 28th of January, 1853. Fatal drinking in the London docks. Last evening, Mr. W. Baker held an inquest at the Barley Mow Tavern, Cannon Street, St. George in the East, respecting the death of Robert Richard Vaughan, aged 45 years. The deceased was a labourer in the London docks, and on Monday afternoon last was engaged with other men at the Eastern Quay. A large quantity of white brandy was on the wharf in casks, and the bungs were out to allow the gaugers to examine the extent and quality of the contents, when one of the dock officers saw the deceased in a stooping position drinking brandy through a hollow piece of cane, which is commonly called sucking the monkey. The officer ordered the deceased away from the warehouse and told him to leave the docks, which he did. About 3:30 o'clock, the deceased was discovered lying upon the pavement in Chigwell Hill, Ratcliffe Highway, quite insensible, in which condition he was taken home by 4 men to his lodgings at No. 2 Russell Court, St. George's Street, where he expired at an early hour on the following morning. Mr. Richard Sharp, surgeon of the New Road, Cannon Street, said that he was called to the deceased after death and had made a post-mortem examination of the body. On opening the stomach, he found about 5 ounces of strong spirit, which seemed to be brandy. The witness had no doubt that the deceased had died from congestion of the brain produced by what he had drunk. The coroner having remarked on the case, the jury returned a verdict of died from drinking a quantity of overproof brandy. The practice soon became widespread in the London docks, and newspapers constantly reported on those who had died from its effects. On Thursday the 14th of January 1869, the Brighton Gazette reported on another fatality. Sucking the monkey has secured another victim. The term we have used is a well-known one amongst those employed in the London docks. It refers to the insertion of a straw or tube in the bung of a spirit cask and the absorption thereby of liquor drawn into the mouth and drank. But not only is this very dishonest, but very dangerous, the effect of such sucking being to produce speedy intoxication, and so one Philip Godfrey, dock labourer, found it last week, for it caused his death. On January the 14th, 1888, the Echo reported on another tragedy caused by the practice. Death of a prisoner. Amongst the prisoners charged this morning at the Thames Police Court was James Donovan, aged 40, a labourer who was charged with being found drunk and incapable. The magistrate was informed that after the unfortunate man was arrested, he died. About 4:30 on Friday afternoon, Constable 124H found Donovan lying on the pavement in High Street, Shadwell, in an insensible condition. An ambulance was procured and the man conveyed to the Shadwell police station, when the inspector sent for the divisional surgeon. On the latter, examining the man, he found him suffering from the effects of drink. By the doctor's advice, Donovan was removed to the London hospital, where he died about 3 hours afterwards from the effects of alcoholic poisoning. From inquiries made, it appeared that the deceased man had been sucking the monkey from a cask of rum at the Colonial Wharf, and he had brought about the condition in which he was found. Some months ago, Constable 134H found Donovan in a similar condition as he was on Friday afternoon. On that occasion, he had been sucking the monkey from a wine cask. Mr. Lushington marked the sheet, "Died in hospital." Although prosecutions for and deaths from the practice declined dramatically in the 1890s, it appears to have enjoyed a resurgence in the early 20th century, particularly in the aftermath of the First World War, by which time it had also become known as riding the pony, on account of the fact that it was common for those doing it to straddle the barrel whilst imbibing the contents. Fatalities, however, still occurred, as is evidenced by the following story from the Dundee Evening Telegraph of Monday the 12th of May, 1919. Sucking the monkey. Dock labourer's death from overproof brandy. When an inquest was held at the London Hospital on Joseph Hyams, 31 years, a dock labourer of Christian Street, St George's in the East, it was stated that the deceased was found in an unconscious condition by the side of a cask of brandy in one of the sheds at the London docks, and he died within 2 hours after a removal to the hospital from asphyxiation while in a state of acute alcoholism. Police Constable Perry said it was found that 3 casks of brandy, each containing 60 gallons of overproof spirit, had been tampered with, and each cask was deficient to the extent of 1 pint. The method by which the brandy was obtained was by making a hole through the bung by the use of a sharp instrument, and then inserting a thick piece of brown paper twisted after the manner of a pipe lighter, or by glass or metal tubing. The deputy coroner asked, "Is that what is called sucking the monkey?" The witness replied, "Yes, or riding the pony, which means that a man, having made the necessary insertion through the bung, gets astride the cask as though riding a pony and then sucks up the spirit." The coroner said that 1 pint of overproof spirit would be sufficient to kill a man, and the deceased, having apparently obtained this, had been asphyxiated. Death by misadventure was the verdict. By the 1930s, sucking the monkey had become very much a thing of the past, and the only references to it in the newspapers tended to be from retired dock workers reminiscing about their working days. Nowadays, the term is rarely used and only tends to crop up, if it crops up at all, in histories of the Victorian docks, in which it was an oft-used and well-known term. The most common reaction of people on hearing it today is to snigger, as it instantly conjures up vulgar connotations that are far removed from its actual meaning. But as my wise and dear old mother used to say, it's not the mouth it comes out of, it's the mind it goes into. Bottoms up.